Okay, so let's move on to the constant file. So in this constant file, we will actually declare an item formatter and a button modifier and feedback for haptic feedback, and that's basically it. Okay, and every time if we want to use specific commands or whatever, we usually have to import libraries that enable us to actually use code and predetermined functions and so on. So for this we need UIKit and we need to import SwiftUi. Okay, and usually Xcode reminds you if you use something that you need to import a specific library, so it's very beginner friendly, I would say. So we will start with formatters and let item formatter short equal date formatter equal brackets let formatter short equals date formatter short dot date style dot, and you can see here we have many different options, so we click short. Okay, formatter short dot time style equals dot none, return formatter short. Okay, I will explain this later. And to initialize, we open brackets and close brackets beneath. Okay, so then here, struct button modifier view modifier func body content some view should be returned with content. Here we go for image scale, and then we have the option to choose something between large, medium, and small. We choose large. Then dot, as you can see, always when we put in something, for example the dot, then we can see the options that are available. So we go for foreground color and dot again, then we have many options, and we go for primary. Okay, then close brackets, this is fine. Then we go for UX, let feedback equal UI notification feedback generator, open brackets, close brackets. Okay, perfect. So we called this file constant because we will use these things all over again in many files. So or maybe not. Maybe we won't use this, but still good that you know how to do it actually. So actually, what does the button modifier? It's simply a struct which you could use for all kinds of buttons. And then the image scale would be large and the foreground color would be primary. So we simply can modify the buttons with the button modifier. Okay, the feedback actually only allows us, it's a constant, so we simply call the UI notification feedback generator with feedback, so we can simply put in feedback instead of this all the time, even though the feedback is nothing else than calling this function. Okay, and the item formatter short is a descriptive name, I would say. So we have a short date style and no time style. So it will only display the date, and it's a date formatter. You can also see an item formatter pre-installed as soon as you actually activate CoreData for an application. In the content view file that is automatically generated, we simply modified it and we will completely write this content view file again. Okay, so we're done with this. So you can copy the code now if you like. Okay, but you already should know that I try to teach the way that I program this first and talk a bit about it, and you can simply listen or double the speed or whatever while I'm talking about it while typing everything in, and then you have time to simply code. So you should simply focus on listening to myself till you have the time to code yourself, and therefore when this time comes you should simply pause the video and take your time to type in the code yourself and simply try to correct yourself and so on, because it actually helps to code it yourself. And what a little trick might be that you could use a lot is you click on Option plus Command, and then you can use the arrow keys and minimize functions or maximize them. This is a great tool if you program a lot, and it makes it easier to simply see the structure of your code. Okay, we will go over to the material effect, and for this you don't really need to understand what's done because this is very specific, and I recommend to you, if you use something like this, then simply watch tutorials and so on where people actually implement this stuff, because many people use this kind of stuff without really knowing what's going on, or simply look into libraries or whatever where it's explained how this stuff works. Okay, anyway, so import SwiftUi, struct MaterialEffect. So this is a struct we can call over again in other files then, and it's a UI view representable, open brackets, var style, UI blur effect. No, this was the wrong one. Dot style func make UI view. Okay, we simply clicked enter, but this looks kind of fine. Context, and then context, and this is not some view, but actually it should translate to UI visual effect view. Okay, this is the right one. Open brackets, this is fine. Then let view equals UI visual effect view effect double point UI blur effect. Looks good. And then open brackets style dot style close brackets, and then return the view, but small letters. And then we go for func update UI view, click enter again. So this is fine. UI view, UI visual effect view, context, this is also fine. Then we simply delete this, and that's it. So take your time now to copy this code. Okay, in the finished application, the material effect is nothing else than the transparent that you can see here for the tab bar, and which will be used here. And the next thing we will do is the bottom curve, like this, how this is aligned, and when we select actually a tab, how this is configured, and so on. Okay, so let's start with that. First, we will import SwiftUi. Import SwiftUi. Then we will start with a tab bar curve. Always remember to make a lot of comments so that you understand what you're doing. Struct BottomCurve double point shape open brackets var current x value is CG float. Okay, this is actually a data type. When we use these double points, then we actually declare a type a variable will have. Then we go, when you're not done typing, often these errors will occur. Animating path at work previous. Okay, var animatable data. Then we go for CG float again. Open brackets, get current x value, set no. Open brackets, current x value equals new value. Okay, then we go for func path open brackets in rect CG rect translate to path open brackets. Okay. Return path open brackets path in Okay, not worked. Perfect. Sometimes you have to be cautious when it auto fills in recommendations for you. CG point x0 0 path at line to CG point x double point rect point width epsilon double point 0 path dot at line to double point CG point open brackets x double point rect width epsilon double point rect height path dot at line to CG point x double point 0 epsilon double point rect dot height. Mid will be current x value. Let mid equals current x value. Path dot move open brackets to CG point x double point mid minus 50 epsilon double point 0. Let to 1 equals CG point x double point mid epsilon double point 35. Let control 1 equals CG point x double point mid minus 35 epsilon 0. Let control 2 equals CG point x double point mid minus 35. Okay, no. Okay, just wanted to look kind of neat. Epsilon 35. Okay, path dot edge curve. Okay, open brackets 2 double point to 1. You can see we're using this now. Control 1. Now we're using this. So we're actually calling the constants which we declared first. Comma, control 2. Control 2. Okay. See? So we first declare variables, and then we're actually using them for the path. Okay. Then we declare a few constants again. So CG point, x mid plus 50, epsilon 0. Let control 3 equals CG point, open brackets, x double point mid plus 35, epsilon double point 35, let control 4 equals CG point, open brackets, x double point mid plus 35, comma, epsilon double point 0, path, and now we do something like this again, what we did before. So path at dot path dot at curve. Okay, and then you can see it's directly loaded how this path should work. Okay, then we put in here to 2. Control 1 will be control 3, and control 2 will be control 4. Why am I referring always to these let variables as constants? Well, simply you can't call a variable usually in structs for Xcode. So usually you call constants or let variables, and you can actually calculate these constants first and still call them. So sounds confusing now, but later on in these tutorials it will become more clear what I mean by that and how these things actually function. Okay, so something is not working yet. Let's figure this out. So this works fine. Okay. Okay, then we have to add a struct BottomCurve previews. So I believe we could actually maybe use view file for that, but now you can see that you can actually create this with a normal Swift file as well. So static var previews, then some view, open brackets, and what you can always display as a view is any kind of view. So we simply go for the content view. We can often do that when we don't want to put in many pre-configured values for different variables. We can always simply call the content view. Okay. Then here's something that is missing. me figure it out. Okay, it vanished. So this code is actually finished. And now you can see that you have a certain pattern of all these variables. And if you would want to change it, so as I mentioned before, this file and this file are things that I found in another tutorial from a guy that's called Kavsoft, which is spelled Kavsoft. You can find him on YouTube. And I simply modified these numbers so that the bottom curve looks according to my wishes, like this one here. And then I modified as well what kind of icons will be displayed for the different tabs. Okay, so if you actually want to modify the look of this and want to know how these things work, let us first, in the next tutorial, program the content view. And when we are done with that, your application should already kind of be working. And when it does, you can simply see what kind of changes you make here, in which manner they actually affect the design of the bottom curve. I always recommend to you, if you want to learn something new, especially with coding and programming, simply try it out. Like, usually nothing can break and you can make a backup if you really want to make sure that you can always return to the state where you left. But then you should really simply do a lot of trial and error and simply figure out how the code works with using changes. And this should really help you to learn a lot. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And in the next tutorial, we will go to the content view file. And I hope you like my style of coding and teaching. At first, I took some time, but then I believe that I accelerated a little bit with the time. So you can see we will be done with this course fairly quick, and we can use some time for explaining and less time for simply telling you what I wrote down. Okay, so now you have the time if you want to copy this code. See you in the next video.